Hello, everyone. Welcome to this ATAC webinar. My name's Simon Townsend. For people who don't know me, I'm co-founder of TCS Insights, and Trevor Vass, who was going to be running this webinar, actually can't make it today. So he's asked me to step in on his behalf, and I'll be the one trying, having spent some time talking to Steve and Olga, trying to moderate the discussion on metrics that matter. And this webinar is being brought to us by our friends at HireEasy. If you haven't checked out HireEasy, it's an amazing product. You really should. Saves a lot of time. Now, before I get started, I'd just like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land and waters from which I'm dialing in from today. Now, I actually live and work on the Darug lands, and I pay my respects to the elders past and present and emerging. As this webinar is actually, we've got people dialing in from all over Australia, New Zealand, and around the world today. So I'd encourage you to just jump into the chat, tell us where you're dialing in from. I'd also encourage you throughout to ensure that you're actually joining in the discussion at any point by sharing your thoughts into that chat bar. If you've got any specific questions that you'd like the panel to address, please just feel free to use the Q&A button at the bottom of the screen. Any questions being dropped in there, we will try and get to everything. It's great to see people coming in on the morning to everyone. It's great. So this is all about recruitment metrics. As recruiters and talent professionals, we all know that we do need to measure the various elements of the recruitment process. What that means for each organization is generally slightly different. There are literally dozens, if not hundreds, of little metrics that we can be measuring, and we use them to track our progress, identify any areas of concern, things that need to be addressed, as well as reporting performance up into the leadership and the wider business. Generally, metrics are designed to paint a picture of how our talent functions are performing. But the key is, how do we know that we're going to be paying attention to the metrics that are actually going to make a difference to what we do? How do we stop ourselves from becoming overwhelmed in the plethora of metrics that are out there? How do we understand which ones are right for us to pick? So that's what we're going to delve into in the course of the next hour. And I'm absolutely delighted to be joined by sourcing expert, HireEasy advisory board member, and technical recruiting manager at ZipCo, Steve Levy. He's actually original member of the ERE and SourceCon as well. And I'm also being joined by the head of talent acquisition at global software engineering company EPAM Systems, Olga Barrett. And Olga has quite literally the best background I've seen on a Zoom call. So it'd be great if you could both switch on your cameras and join in the conversation.
Steve, you go.
Fantastic. Thank you, Olga. Good to have you here. And Steve, great to have you here.
Good morning from good evening here in New York.
Yes. And it's great to have you joining. And thank you so much for joining, in the evening after work. I think it's fascinating how we are really a small world now after all. And it's being able to share conversations, thoughts from around the world is really important. So if I can, we've thrown up here a whole bunch of potential recruiting metrics that, things that we are looking at. I know that there's some that are used by lots of people, some that aren't used, but it'd be really nice if you could just have a quick look through, a glance through, and suggest some that are perhaps hygiene metrics, things that we probably should be measuring or are used to measuring. I might start with you, Olga. Are there any in particular that sort of leap out as obvious ones that people should be?
Hey everyone. Hey Sam. Thanks for the question. Thanks for sharing the metrics. Yeah, look, definitely success in TA, in my experience, is pretty much a moving target, and it's a collective effort. Because let's be honest, a good portion of our challenges in TA sit outside our reach. As long as decision making about actual hires are elsewhere in the organization, and the point of quality control is again not within the TA. So our success and failure is a very subjective instance, I think. So yes, data metrics conversations are super important. Gives us a leg to stand and a captivating story to tell using data points in the world of opinions, gut feelings, and all the jazz. Yeah, so and we have data backing us up. Other functions in the business might have again, opinions, and some of them get terribly pissy when you ask them what data supports your opinion, pretty much. So, but again, we need to be careful, but not cornering ourselves with the metrics and picking the right one. Careful that not only help us to understand how good we are, but also can be used to prove our value and keep all involved people, accountable. Yeah, so these metrics are quite interesting, and some of them make total sense for me. Some I might not be finding like super valuable. For example, applicants per opening. I'm not quite sure how and why would we measure it. Like, what would that mean for us? It means that recruiter did the job well, that sourcing function was great, that hiring manager get the shit together and they actually gave us a good brief, or the market is oversaturated, or we're offering good salary. I mean, like what am I gonna do with this? Yeah. So
there's a number of elements you can tip there, isn't it? Right.
Yeah. So and in my line of work, and I'm talking digital consultancy, 60,000 people scattered across 50 countries. So extensive presence across dozens of countries with very different types of markets. We do have a set of metrics that are pretty much universal for everyone in TA. And we have like around 1,000 people in EPAM who do only TA. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So we measure recruiter productivity, and we have a definition, like the new recruiters who just step in the organization for 2 months, we don't consider them productive. Yeah. So we measure cost per hire, and I know Steve is a big fond of this metric.
Yeah, it's my favorite metric.
We're going to talk about it. We measure what's called CPH, cost per hire ratio. It's CPH divided to average salary of people we hire. We measure seniority index. We have a set of metrics that are pretty much universal, basically for everyone. Acceptance ratio, renege ratio, again, we measure it, but it doesn't mean that, like, some markets are just like that, 50% of people who accept offers, for example, in India, don't join the company. 30% of people who accept offer in China don't join the company. So this is just a market kind of peculiarity. Yeah, and other than that, the individual metrics for recruiters, of course. Yeah, numbers of hires where you expect them to make, and of course you can go again. You can drill down on like number, I don't know, interviews or outreach. But I'll be very honest, we don't really measure it like explicitly unless we're seeing that there are some problems with the, kind of with the results. Yeah. And that's where the person is struggling with their major KPIs, and then we go and check like where's the bottleneck. Yeah. So metrics for the function overall, and that's why like I want to understand, for example, ratio between stages. We have few interviews, and I want to understand again where's the bottleneck. If the top of the funnel is super wide, and then it goes like super narrow. Yeah. So what's happening? Referrals definitely there. We run 3 types of referral programs, which is external, internal, and affiliate. 23% of our hires happen from external referrers. Yeah, so, and there are different KPIs for referral programs. It's like quantity, quality, intensity, and engagement. And metrics to keep stakeholders accountable. Yeah, so do they actually attend the SLA? Like, for example, with feedback, SLA is 24 hours. Like, are you there? Do people, and we conduct like a hell of a lot of technical interviews. Do these people reschedule interviews? Do they cancel interviews? It's a big no-no for us because like candidate experience obviously goes like, out of the window. Yeah, so that's where we are.
That's great.
Again, cost per hire is a big one. I'm happy to talk about it, but over to you, Steve.
No, I think if I can, I mean, just a couple of things there that I think really important. You talking about how the information is being backed by real data, right? And actually having an objective at the end. And one of the things that I think is really important is the uniqueness of something. So you're not interested in a metric if it's got a whole world of different things that can be plucked out of it. Being able to actually get down to the nub or the real essence of something sounds like it's really important for EPAM. And I'd like to dive into that a bit more so we can measure which of the SLAs are important. I think we probably need an engineering background person to sort of jump in to help with the data. So, Steve,
that's a good segue for you. For those who don't know me, I was an engineer for 15 years, and I, like everybody here, recruiting found me and smacked me. You're going to change your profession. But in my first engineering course, I'm proud to say back in September 1976, probably before many people on the call were born. That's okay. One of the professors, literally the first day in the first class, said something to the effect, structure begets function. And like anything we do in TA, we like to build, we like to grow, we like to get larger. But if the foundation isn't solid, then you can only build so well on top of the house. Sure, you can paint the house, do nice gardening, nice window treatment. But ultimately, if the foundation is weak, the building will ultimately develop cracks, and there are going to be problems. And it goes to the conversation about metrics. Metrics are used so we can track and improve. And the two core areas to improve things, and there may be three. Actually, there are three. It's our operations, our operational processes, our effectiveness. And the second element is the actual people doing the recruiting or sourcing or recruiting coordination, branding, everything that goes part of TA. Every metric that you choose has to ultimately help to improve one of those two categories. And ultimately, the umbrella that's overseeing all of it are the key business drivers, the key business metrics, the goals, the deliverables. It's all about performance. Now, everything here and all these metrics, and I put them on here from another webinar I did that was a similar vein to this, are things that I have heard others use through the years. And the goal of this webinar is not necessarily to say give thumbs up or thumbs down for any of the metrics. It's to get everyone here to start thinking for your specific instance, which metrics make the most sense for your business model, for your industry, for the people you have there, for the leadership, what they need. Those are the most critical things. But also keep in mind that we are entering what is effectively a paradigm shift in how we do business. The chat GTP, the AI era, I chuckle because I think you heard me earlier say that if it's written in Python, it's machine learning. If it's written in PowerPoint, it's AI. AI as we know it now is still very, very narrow. But this paradigm shift requires us to look at how we conceptualize TA, how we and if we're going to rethink how we conceptualize TA, and how we're going to what services we are going to deliver, and how we're going to deliver them, then by logic, the metrics that we use to assess whether we're doing good, bad, or ugly also need to be part of the conversation.
The ultimate goal, I think, of today is to get people to start thinking.
And don't just take it, play the, well, we've always done it this way game. And find out something that works best for you, and then continuously improve that.
I think that's right. And it's interesting, there's a comment here in the chat about what do they mean, what decisions can be made based on the metrics. And I think that's the key, right? It's tracking to the business objective and the goal, understanding what these levers, these are measures on a lever. If I move that lever based on the data, what's the result I'm going to get? I think that's where the basis of it needs to start.
And I think that's where someone like Dan Rue's been doing this for like 30 years. Dan and I are friends, and it takes somebody who really has more of a talent advisor mindset to question everything and ask questions like this. because that is the essence of what we do as talent advisors. We're not just putting bodies in seats. We're helping to improve the company. We're helping to generate revenue. We're helping to reduce, G&A. We're helping and any accounting metric. That's what we impact with great recruiting.
Yeah.
So he's right.
Yeah. And I mean, if we can circle back to that, I know, Olga, cost per hire is a really important metric for EPAM. And I'd love to just sort of delve into how you're using that across the universe of people that you're hiring.
Right. Okay. So I do run my team as a business. Yeah. So EPAM is a big company. There are 7 different TA teams located across the board with their own capabilities, limitations, etc., etc. And we all know that, look, especially in the tech world, it's scary. It's kind of, windy and snowy out there. So we have to be lean, we have to be agile, we have to, do things that we couldn't do before. Like just today, I was talking to my manager, Larry, who's our chief people officer, and we're just like revamping the whole bonus system for like 7 countries that they're looking after, because it used to be designed for recruiters in Singapore, recruiting for Singapore, and that's the end of story. But now it's a different world, and we're scattered across 3 regions now. Yeah, so yeah, things are changing. Anyway, so getting back to CPH, and look, I appreciate that potentially for some companies, for some TA teams, it might not be the first priority. But guess who is a person who's like super invested and who knows about your CPH, your cost per hire, even if you don't? It's your chief financial officer. And I think if you don't know what's happening and what's the trajectory, you might be, kind of out for the very nasty surprise. And maybe the teams who've been like just, kicked out of the business, if they knew what's happening, and if they made, changes in architecture, not this very sad accordion, like let's hire recruiters, let's fire recruiters, let's hire recruiters, let's fire recruiters. Yeah. That would have been useful, and that would have saved people from losing their jobs. So like in my case, as I said, I run TA as a business function. So I inherited the region with very high CPH, and I built a rather new architecture of the team, keeping an eye on this figure. Yeah, so for me, it was important in that, in the circumstances I was back then. So some functions within TA were established and centralized. For example, the sourcing function. Some functions were localized and decentralized because marketing cannot be really centralized in this particular region. So for me, decreasing cost per hire was a new approach. It was a business achievement, and as we achieved 50% growth, in the region, it earned me some brownie points with the board. So and I was able to actually further and fund training and upskilling for recruiters. So we're not stopping like back with our achievement of 50% growth. Like, yeah, no, we need to be better. We can't stop. Like, we can't get too comfortable. Yeah, considering recession tendencies on global market. Yeah, so that's where CPH is helping. Yeah, so because I build my budget around it. I can see, for example, yeah, there was we were like engaging lots of third-party, companies, vendors, RPO, etc. But what they giving us? They're giving us sourcing, they're giving us marketing. So let's cut on them. Let's push for that. Is it working? Yes. Is it sustainable? Yes. Here we are. Yeah. So that's my story.
Yeah.
But I'm sure you all have your own.
Obviously, there are. I think it's really important that we walk away from this. Everyone walks away from this not expecting to have just these are the single metrics or the 3 metrics that are going to be most important, because it is different different horses for different courses, right? What's going to be right for one organization is not going to be right for another organization, and at different stages as well. So if you look at the business life cycle of an organization, understanding if you're in growth mode, you're in startup, whatever it might be, as opposed to actually I'm trying to sort of optimize business or drive into new regions. There's 1,000 different things that are going to affect which metrics you should be looking at. But I think it's really important to understand, and your point about the CFO knowing your numbers is vital, even if you don't. You know, you need to be there and actually have that same conversation, so you're in a level set. For me, though, understanding how we can actually ensure that we are getting a true base metric is really important. So I know Kevin Wheeler's not a massive fan of cost for hire because it's changes per role, per region, and it's very difficult to track. I know, Steve, you've got a way of sort of helping to sort of normalize that. It'd be interesting to sort of delve into that a bit for people.
Yeah, thank you, Simon. And I want to just add a really important comment to what Olga said. It's your relationship with your chief financial officer. You have to have a relationship with your chief financial officer or your controller, whomever the top budget person is in your business unit, and have the conversation. And maybe it's not cost per hire. But have a real basic, brilliant basic, if you were to identify what you would like to see as your foundation metrics to measure the effectiveness of talent acquisition, what would they be? Have a conversation, do it over coffee, do it over an adult beverage, but have the conversation. Do not assume that, maybe if eventually I'll pick up and find, I'll learn what the key metrics here. Learn for yourself, be the talent advisor.
Great. And things like sourcing cost, channel cost is really important there, because if it's not just necessarily cost per hire, but understanding where the value for each channel is, that's a kind of a simple one, really.
But every metric on this page has pros and cons, and I suspect perhaps more cons than pros. But because we're making assumptions with every metric that we have here, and we may not talk about it, but we make assumptions such that every recruiter does things the same way, every sourcer does things the same way, everyone's at the same level. And there's a point in which metrics need to break down granularly to the individual level, and then there are times where it makes sense to roll them up at the operational level. But that's something, as a talent advisor, you're going to determine based on where the
But going to cost per hire,
historical challenge with cost per hire has been that it lacks the concept of normalization. And this is by no means a knock. Olga offline, she explained very well how she does it and why she does it, and added the nice little hitch, cost per hire divided by, essentially compensation recruited. So we're getting a more normalized metric. But generally speaking, companies that measure cost per hire don't take into account that your recruiting mix changes year to year, quarter to quarter, location to location, level to level, function to function. And so, it's nice to say that you are reducing your cost per hire, but is it relative to the same general area? And in most companies, no, that's not the case. It lacks the normalized element. And that's why something that I've been talking about for, close to 25 years. I didn't have hair even back then when I was talking about it, in case you were wondering, Simon. It's something called a recruiting efficiency ratio, which early on we called it staffing efficiency ratio.
Yeah.
And recruiting efficiency ratio is essentially you take your direct plus your indirect costs and you divide it by the total compensation hired. And what that does is a direct cost: salary, benefits, indirect, and it's. I'm not going to give a completely comprehensive list of what is in each category. Indirect costs, things like licenses, whether it's Hire Easy, whether it's LinkedIn Recruiter, whether it's you use Calendly as a software. It's also, in the old days, some of the indirect costs. You can go to your facilities department for a larger company and know that what is the cost per seat of an employee. So you take all these things, and that's the actual TA cost, and you divide it by the compensation recruited, and you get a metric that is something on the order of 12%, 0.12. What that means, it takes 12 cents, whether it's AUD or USD or CDN or any other, whatever it is in your currency, that base cost to take here in the States, it takes 12 cents to recruit $1 of compensation. That is what we call a normalized metric. And you can compute that by level, by location, by business unit, by function. You can even restart the clock quarterly. One of the things that I really espouse is for the first, if you're there for 2 to 3 years, measure the periodicity, measure the seasonality, Q1, Q2, Q3 for spring, summer, fall, winter. See if things change. Start tracking, do certain events, political, economic, social, technological events. Move the needle on that recruiting efficiency ratio. It's hard to do this because the bulk of our profession still thinks in things like cost per hire, time to fill, quality of hire, etc. And so it really, along with since we're going through a paradigm shift in TA, it made sense to bring this up again. And it's something to consider. And again, the normalized metric means that you can compare recruiter to recruiter, location to location, country to country, if you will. The caveat being some countries are substantially harder to recruit for than others.
And I think that's key, right? It's understanding that if you're doing this, it's not necessarily it's not rolled up completely. So you in order to get real apples to apples, you're going to need to be looking at the role, the location, and getting a measure for each. I think that's really important. I'm also intrigued, how do you calculate things like seats that have been open for too long are really hard to fill? How do they get measured in as part of those indirect costs? Is that the license spread across all roles regardless? And
yeah, because you're computing this for a period.
Yep.
And again, just like cost per hire, you're computing. If you choose to make it an annual cost, that's fantastic. If you choose to make it a monthly computation, whatever you choose to include in your dashboard and how you choose to structure your dashboard, that's yes, it's all included. Time, if it takes longer to I mean there are shortcomings to every metric, and this is one of the shortcomings. But it's the time might be well, here's how the time works. It's and this is where it gets hard and granular. It's if you want to do it over a certain rec and compare rec to rec, I mean you may not have, you probably don't have enough data, but you can try to do it, but the challenge there is going to be what I would do is just compute the RER as is, but note the seasonality, the political, the economic events. There's a lot of downsizing, a lot of layoffs. The hiring manager changes their mind. It's like when you do a dissertation, there are footnotes.
Yep.
I mean, because everyone here knows. I mean, if I ask the audience, show of hands in the last 30 days, how many people here have wanted to kill a hiring manager? I think a lot of people would probably say yes.
And just be aware, everyone, it is being recorded. So
Don't confess, Steve.
Yeah. No, I look at me. This is a very, very sweet person. I would never kill a hiring manager.
Again,
Yeah, maybe public flogging, but not killing.
Public flog. I believe in public floggings. Olga, you're my sister. This is great.
so I'm intrigued as to how, if we're looking at these metrics, they're not easy to get right. And I think that there is a lot of potential flux to understand which are the right ones to be measuring and where you go. And I kind of think of it as personally, it's like an Angry Birds routine. You aim, release, adjust to see if you've hit the right mark. If you haven't, just change it slightly, have another shot, measure that, pull that lever slightly, see what we get. And it's all about that continual test and learn, or test and grow. How many is appropriate? You don't want to measure the world. You don't want to measure too fine. Is there a kind of a one? Do you want to look at a couple for process, a couple for people, a couple for hiring managers? How do you settle on what's the best set of metrics?
Olga, if you could answer that, you're a better person than I am.
I mean, like, it depends. I mean, like, there's no magic bullet or pill or whatever else, It depends on where you are. It depends where your function is. It depends on what the markets you're operating at. And I think that it's also important to distinguish what's the data that we want to bring and what are the metrics, right? Yeah, so look, sorry, Steve, sorry, I don't know how to answer.
No, I mean, this is a challenging piece. It's like, if for anybody here who, Dan, or the best metric, whatever gets you what you want from those who pay, spoken like an agency recruiter.
Yeah.
But ultimately,
That's a good one.
Wasn't just me?
No.
Okay. Steve, we've got a problem with your audio. Lucy, not sure you can help. May need to just get Lucy to jump in here and help. Lucy, do you have any suggestions on how we can solve this?
Yes, sorry about that.
Solo.
I don't think Steve's realised that he's having an issue with his audio. So these things are live, everyone. This isn't a recording. See if Steve's back.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Much better. Thank you, Steve.
Technology is wonderful. When it comes to choosing, what to start with, what is your minimal viable product?
Nice.
And it goes to, what do you want the metrics to do? What questions do you want them to answer? And then don't complicate it by adding 17 others on top of it. If understanding, if you're trying to determine where there are inefficiencies in your process, create a hypothesis. What maybe it's part of the maybe your SLA is wrong. Maybe you've heard back from your Glassdoor reviews that the process is really laborious. Identify the questions that make sense to you, and then start measuring to see if in fact there's a problem there.
Yeah, so Lucy, maybe if we can bring up the next slide around business drivers. So one of the things that Trevor and I would recommend is really sort of looking at what the objectives of the business are, and tying your metrics to that. So understanding and I'd even step a step further up on this and look at the goals, but understanding what are the various drivers within your organization, I think is really important, because it is looking outside just our recruitment functions and being part of the business. I have a pet peeve where, in recruitment, we always say, oh, and the business did this and the business is doing that, and I need to talk to the business. And it's like, no, you're the business. We're the business. We're all part of the business. I really dislike that sort of us and them piece. But Lucy, if you skip to the next one as an example, we can sort of see where this is an example mining company. the goal or the business, like the main goal may be around minimizing safety and risk. And we've got a bunch of tactics and enablers that we can sort of step to get down into the detail. But the metrics, what we're actually measuring, are the elements that are going to take us back across the page to meet that business driver or goal. And I think that's really important for recruitment to be able to say, okay, if our organization is looking at minimizing safety and risk, what are the metrics that are going to be important? So if someone's not running through the assessment to understand what their psychometrics might be or whatever it is, they're not the right person. So we need to ensure that the people who are actually going to meet and help us gain that business driver or business goal are the people that we're hiring.
I like it. If you go back one slide, Lucy. Yeah, the business. This is truly. I think this slide might be the take-home slide for everybody here. And go back and ask yourself for each of these areas. Are you measuring? Does your dashboard allow you to measure how TA is impacting each of those areas? That's a coming to some religious figure moment. It's real. It's important to ask yourself, are you? I look at statutory regulations, particularly here in the States, with the political rancor that we have right now. We're seeing, for example, in New York City, there's regulation 144, which states that the companies must divulge to job seekers when AI is being used in the hiring process. I know but it's things like that how then are you going to measure that?
Yeah, that's right.
And this goes earlier on. I talk about here in TA, we need to be pests. We need to be aware of the political, economic, social, technological happenings of the day and in the future, and then try to figure out how they're going to impact how we do our jobs, how that's going to impact business results, and how we measure if we're doing something good, bad, or ugly. So this is truly a great slide. And if we go forward to one more slide where you use the example for the data mining company, it's not. This is a fantastic slide. Tactics, enablers, metrics. Working back from your metrics, ask yourself after you do this exercise, what are we missing? Don't just necessarily discuss this amongst other people in TA. Do what Olga does. Drag your CFO into the conversation. Get another set of analytical eyeballs on it. And people who are really truly data wonks, and see what they say.
Yeah, completely agree. Bringing more people in is vital. And Olga, I'd be interested to, just on the couple of elements there. So being pests, I think is interesting, and ensuring that we've got the right steps and we are digging into what it means and asking questions. I'd also love to know, should we be putting metrics on our hiring managers? Should it be just us? A lot of what we do is out of the.
Yeah.
Do you do that at EPAM?
Yeah, we have SLAs. Some are working, some are like, what you gonna do? Gonna tell them you're not gonna be hiring for them? Yes, sometimes we do it. Yes, if there is no movement on the requisition for 2 weeks, it's automatically closed because if you can't be asked to to do something there, why should we be working on hiring? But then again, as I was saying from the very beginning, the vast range of our problems and challenges lay outside our reach in the TA organization because of the decision making and point of quality control. They lay outside. That's why I'm not a big fond of quality of hire metrics, for example, because there are too many cooks on this kitchen, you know. So I'm sorry, like if your foie gras is not gras, you know. Yeah. So yeah, definitely the response rate, the clarity of briefs, which is I think it's a fundamental problem, because hiring managers have no freaking idea what they want, you know, and this lack of knowledge goes around, you know, the chain of command. We can sugarcoat it as much as we want, but they have opinions, they have friends, you know, they have connections on LinkedIn. You know, why can't you hire a Java developer? You know, I have so many connections. Yeah. If I Google how many, you know, piano tuners are in Chicago, if probably Steve would recognize this reference, it's like, how would you move the Mount Fuji? Yeah. So they are part of the process. They need to be accountable, and that's. Just yesterday, I had this conversation with a hiring manager where I was like, how come you don't trust me? I was like, no, it's not a matter of trust. We have hirees that backing us up with data from 52 platforms. And you're telling me that because you think or you feel that something's happening this way, it's happening this way. And I'm telling you what's like, you know, how are you going to cash this check? Yeah. So, yeah. But talking about the business reasons and how we use data, and I'm going to step away from metrics. Yeah. So metrics is something like we, you know, internally. I just say again how amazingly Harris is helping us, and I've been a big fan of this platform. I've been before EPAM, before Zendesk, before I always loved it. I loved it for sourcing. I loved it for now I love it for its AI component. It's fantastic. So I'm happy to share how we use data to impact the business decisions as a TA function. We bring business intelligence, and that's where Harris is basically been just great help in the market intelligence. So help us understand the thorough picture of the market capacity and have these conversations on stakeholders on just on different level. So when we're in the position to advise stakeholders on the market capacity versus market penetration in certain regions, and that does help business decisions. Like, so are we building this hub or this practice in this particular country, or do we intend to serve to attend this client in this location, or we're scrapping the bottom, or there's a so, and apart from the market capacity, we're looking also at the talent migration. Again, that's what Harris is helping us, because there are markets, like if you Google how many people in Vietnam, how many engineers in Vietnam, say hello the domestic talent, but there's very little movement of when it comes to the talent migration. And you know what? For international company, it might be difficult to build something substantial there. When, for example, Qatar or Malaysia, and in Qatar, the market capacity might be lower, but the constant influx of talent, for example, here we are, we can build hubs in there. Another point, we reach out to all the people who are on the market. There are no hidden hubs, there are no hidden envelopes, there are no hidden corners, and we can have conversations with people and collect information about the real real salary, real market salary data. The data that no Mercer, no KPMG, like none of these folks can bring us, because they are real conversations with John and Jill or Juan and Tian, who are telling that that's what I'm earning, and that's that's what I want. Yeah, so Harizi, big thanks, big fan. Again, love your AI components. Right now, actually, we are developing a solution that would help us to automate a major part of sourcing, and we're working with Harizi pretty close. Yeah,
that's great to hear.
Yeah, but one more point that I wanted to make, Steve, when you were saying about comparison, I think it's very important to be careful what we compare ourselves to, because there are, as I was saying, heaps of factors impacting. And if I learned anything, it's here is not there, and now is not then. There is this hidden half. So we need to be very sensitive of like, where do we establish this benchmark of comparison?
I think that's right.
No, it's true.
Yep.
This is, measuring performance, whether it's TA or any place. It's likely to get the most, get more people's blood, enraged at the same time of, as extending their intellectual capabilities. But the important thing is to, and then through all this, it's still what's best for your business.
Yes.
It still comes down to, copying what manga, because it's meta. No more Fang. It's meta, so it's manga. It's copying what manga does because manga does it, and you make the assumption they must be great. That's folly. It's choose your own path.
Yep.
But make sure your assumptions are rock solid, and make sure that there is a plan for continuing, for your blueprint will actually create a solid foundation by which you can make the proper business decisions moving forward. That's hard, because that is not something that generally somebody who's earlier in their career is going to be able to do. You just haven't seen enough. You don't have enough scars, you don't have enough broken bones, because this profession will break you, it will hurt you. And but those of us who have been doing it for a long time, we found shortcuts, we found ways to make it work. And literally by making it our own. That's what Olga's doing with EPAM. She's made it her own. She's not listening to what some bald-headed knucklehead is saying about cost per hire. She knows that in her situation, what she has is it works best. And what works best means for the business, for the leadership, for all the different markets. That's smart.
I absolutely agree with that 100%. It's the customization that is
You
most
like that, Olga,
important.
didn't you?
Oh my God, please don't stop. Go on.
If I can, I think I'd just like to tap into a comment from Sarah in the chat around understanding the potential for alternate style metrics. I mean, she's talking about effectively the cost of inaction. So quantifying the daily cost of a role being open, using that to create urgency, which I think is a really interesting use of a metric. So as long as you can get the data, how you're using it may not just be as a lever for your team, it may be as a lever for the hiring managers. You can see if you've got the role open X. Sure.
It can backfire. Yeah.
And
what you gonna do with it? Is it gonna be grounds for firing the hiring manager?
I don't think
what
you
type
can
of
go that
conversation
far.
is going to help you?
Well, that's the setting the expectations ahead of time. Where when you put someone on a PIP, in many cases it does mean it's the first step before we let them go. But if you're truly interested in raising everybody up,
That's it.
and then anybody who's a parent, we know that. My late mom used to say her grandkids were her reward for not killing her own children. And she was right about that. But, you consider hiring managers, in many cases, I'm great at recruiting. I've hired 25 people over my 20-year career.
Yeah,
in my life, yeah. They say things like that. And you're
they do. Yeah.
And you're thinking to yourself, I need to take a break or else I'm going to hurt you. But, it's still it's important to use metrics to state them and to stay straight out as part of the TA ethos, we're going to use metrics to make everyone better. And not everybody is going to be as a superstar performer. Not
Right.
every manager, we all know hiring managers are just downright horrible at recruiting, at interviewing. They ask questions that make us go, oh God, I'm glad there's no lawyer present. But we use the metrics in a way to raise them up, and we spend time with them. That's the hard part. It's spending time with them and trying to find a way to get to them in a manner that resonates with them till they go, wow, I'm not good, am I?
We tend to ask them, like, what information do you need to make this decision? Because you don't need more time. Yeah, you can make
Absolutely.
the decision right here, right now.
Yep.
What's piece of information lacking or missing for you to make this decision right here, right now? But and I hear, Steve, I think that definitely relationships and expectations, with, of how we play this game is like utterly important. What I'm struggling with is metrics. It's always post factum. It's always like when things are screwed up already.
It is difficult, isn't it?
Yeah.
Being able
So
to get anything
maybe we
that's-
need to agree beforehand. We need to agree on the show. So
Yeah.
Happy to do that, and that's how we do that.
And I
Yeah.
think that's a really strong part of being a talent advisor in the new world, is actually going in the brief, setting the expectations, ensuring that we've got, okay, if you are slow for whatever reason, what extra data are you going to need? Getting that all laid out in a way that the hiring manager and the recruiter and the rest of anyone else in the situation is on the same page. We're all in agreement. We know what the game plan is. That level of influence needs to be backed by data, and only when you've got all those elements in place, and the metrics actually going to be really effective.
Especially when you have other hiring managers where their data is clearly demonstrating expertise on their part.
Yep.
And so a soft solution is to get some of those managers to perhaps mentor some of the weaker managers.
Look at Bob. Why can't you be like Bob? Yeah.
Now we've only got 5 minutes left, so any questions would be great, but doesn't seem that we've got any questions at the moment. But I think that's important, and being able to sort of actually, again, use that influence to identify these are hiring managers that we want to lift up as part of the process. And if we can back up with data as to why they're good, and if we can start getting into, those more proactive metrics and understanding what future, perhaps that's something that AI can help with, propensity to be faster to productivity or something, various elements like that. So, sorry, my dog's old. So still no questions. Okay.
All good people in TA have pets, I'm sure.
Yeah, that's right. I've got a very geriatric dog. So I did want to, before we wrapped it up, I wanted to thank both Steve and Olga. I think this discussion has been really, really interesting for me. I think we could probably go for another hour without any problem, and still only just begin to scratch the surface. Absolutely, I'm there. I'm a massive recruitment nerd, so yeah, absolutely. But I think it's also important to thank the ATC for putting this on. And I just like to mention that in November in Sydney, in the Luna Park, ATC 2023 will be happening. If you haven't got your tickets booked, it's a great opportunity to do that now. It's all about aligning strategies, empowering people, and impactful outcomes. And the conversations that we should be having there, I think that we need to make sure that they're continuing, because these conversations about understanding what data requirements, how that marries into the actual business outcomes, that's what's really going to help lift the entire industry into being more talent advisors. And so with that, unless there are final thoughts, Steve and Olga.
Thank you very much. It's been an absolute pleasure. Happy to connect. Happy to talk about it in online, offline. And Steve, again, absolute pleasure. I think that
we're gonna have some good conversations going forward.
that's for sure, sis.
And I do want to thank EPAM for all the good employees I've recruited over the years.
I'll piss off.
I do also want to do a final shout out to Hire Easy. It really is a great product. If you haven't checked it out, there are so many elements within it that can be used to help improve your efficiencies and get recruitment benefit at scale. Absolutely fantastic product. Well worth checking out. So with that, I want to thank you everyone again. Thank you everyone for attending. I hope you all have a wonderful rest of the day, evening. If you're listening to the recording, I hope you had a wonderful day. Everyone
Thanks,
take care.
everyone. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye.